Hey everybody, in case you don't know who we are BJ and Rayleigh Pierce, and Pastor Micah reached out to us last week after him and Callie had done their video on Christ-centered home habits, or what I like to call healthy home habits. I hope he doesn't mind me renaming it. Anyways, he reached out and wanted to know if BJ and I would be interested in participating. And I mean, at first I absolutely just jumped on the opportunity without even speaking with BJ first. But then later on, I came around, and as I was talking with Pastor Micah kind of what it entailed, which was, very loose guidelines, I told him something that we have always been very passionate about, and something that has been on our hearts for a really long time is communication, and meaning communication just in all aspects of our lives. We feel that very strongly that with communication, it's like the most vital, most important role in successful relationships or a successful life. So for us, we have in our home, the three most important things in our home is the Lord, our marriage, and our kids. I would say within each of those three components that we want to talk about, we want to just talk about and explain how we feel and what has worked in our home, and the things that we still are continuing to work on when it comes to communication within our marriage, communication with the Lord, and then communication within our kids. So first I want to read from Proverbs. So Proverbs 18:21, it says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit." What does that say to you?
Well, it just tells me that anything you hear or see, depending on how you take it as far as communication, you can go several different ways with it. So it says death and life are in the power of the tongue. So you can actually communicate in a wrong manner and hurt somebody, or you can communicate in the proper manner and lift someone up.
Right. So I'll go off of that and say, starting out with communication within our parenting, I think that's huge, because I think at any moment, depending on how you are communicating or speaking to your children, can be so detrimental and so important in how they view themselves when they grow up, or how they even speak to other people, or how they are with their future spouse. And so
yes,
I would say for me, I would almost double-sided, almost one of the biggest struggles, but also I find it to be one of the biggest blessings, is that we're raising three boys. And I think that in today's world, that more so with boys or men, you were made to feel like weak, or that you are something's wrong with you, or that you are whipped in a sense if you are open to open communication. And it makes it seem as if there's a negative connotation surrounding the communication and boys. Would you agree?
Yes, I find it hard. For me at times, I still struggle with being communicating real well with others, just simply because I'm supposed to be the strong, powerful one, and it's a pride thing for me, and I believe it for a lot of men in general. So we try to raise our boys to let them understand that it's okay to let somebody know how you're feeling or what's going on, and just communicate in general with whatever's on your mind.
I think too, it's just about breaking down that wall. I would say for you and I that early on, it was really difficult for you to communicate. Yeah. It was really difficult even for you to almost tap into those feelings, because I don't think you necessarily knew how to, or it could even be a situation of not feeling safe, because even for myself, if I don't feel safe, I'll be less likely, I'll shut down. So I think with the kids, one thing that we tried really hard, especially with Ryler since he's getting older, and the other boys too, but especially with Ryler, just creating a safe, healthy communication with him, that no matter what, at any given point, no matter what it is, he feels safe to have a conversation with, not only with us, but with, really close people in our lives, like, your mom and Eddie. We always want our kids to feel safe in the sense of communicating to whatever their want or their need or what they're missing, or if they're frustrated. I think that's the really big one, is just, it's so easy when you get frustrated to just shut down. And I think even us as adults do that. But we want our boys to carve out a new way. I don't want it to be that difficult for them when they get older.
Right. Absolutely.
Would you agree?
I agree.
Yeah. So then the next important part of our home, which aside from our relationship with the Lord for us, is communication within our marriage.
Yes, and it was a big one for me, because there it goes again, the pride thing is it's hard for a man to communicate, or it was for me to communicate with my wife in certain ways, and I just believe that in today's time, that communication in a marriage would probably make a lot more marriages last and stay together, and you create a bigger, stronger bond when you communicate how you feel, and then you wrap the Lord up in it, where you can both sit down and communicate about the Lord and try to keep Him as a key figure in your marriage. And not only that, it goes right back to your parenting. It shows your kids what life's supposed to be like, and it shows them how you're supposed to treat each other in a marriage, how nobody, you're not supposed to fight and argue and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, stuff comes up where people bicker in a marriage.
Well, I think it's more so it relates back to being disrespectful.
Yes.
When there's the lack of the communication, it can come off very disrespectful.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think it comes down to not only the words that you're saying to each other, but I think for us, the one major thing that we've learned is how we're saying it to one another. So for us over the last couple years, one thing that we've really worked hard on, and one thing that we have adapted in our marriage, and something that has helped us tremendously, I think, go from point A to point C as far as the level of communication, is we have this dialogue. So especially like when you're frustrated or you're hurt or you're mad, something that we do between the two of us is, in an argument or in a hurtful conversation, if you see that the other one is becoming defensive or the other one is getting hurt, we will try to stop. And like, for instance, I will say, okay, I know this is what you said, but how it made me feel or what I heard you say is, and I would lay out like what I heard, because oftentimes I think everybody knows what one person says and what the other person takes it as are usually two completely different things. And so when you do that, it allows the space for me to take accountability of like, hey, I acknowledge that I may have just that may have triggered something in me, and so I heard it a different way and it hurt my feelings. So it takes my accountability, and then it allows him the freedom to not have to be defensive, and almost like we're meeting in a common ground.
Right. So sometimes it's better to explain what you meant by what you said versus just by saying it and walking away.
Absolutely. Yeah. I fully agree.
Because I carry one tone most of the time, and it doesn't have a whole lot of excitement or much to it, but sometimes the way I say stuff, I just have to say, look, that's not what I meant, this is what I meant. It just came off that way because it's the way I carry my tone a lot of the times. And
I think it just goes back to, because I mean, we're all in your, like, you're two completely different people. So I'm a very emotionally driven person and BJ just isn't. So once we were able to come to a common ground and find a space of communication that felt safe for the both of us, I think that's when we were able to really soar in a sense, if you will. And like, I mean, don't get me wrong, we don't do it perfect all the time by any means, and there's still times, but 9 times out of 10 we're able to circle back around to it.
So I just feel like that if you implement a lot of communication with your spouse and your children, that the day just goes by easier.
Because you almost
get along,
you know what to
instead of trying to figure
expect.
out what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's helped us a lot. we couldn't be more happier with our marriage. And
So
I just think it's a really good key to have.
Yeah. So we have two verses that we want to reference in regards to communication within the marriage. And so he's going to read first.
So mine will be James 1:19, and it says, "My dear brothers and sisters, understand this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger." So
I think that falls right into kind of with the dialogue that we were talking about.
So sit back and listen to what's being said.
Take into account how the other person is.
And if you don't understand what it meant, if it meant a different way than it was supposed to, ask the question, what did you mean by that? Or that hurt my feelings? Is that what you meant?
Right. Because I think that's one of the parts that people may miss with communication is, like, you have to follow through. Like, you have to keep going. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just a one-size-fits-all conversation. So the one that I'm going to read is out of Colossians 4:6. It says, "Act wisely toward outsiders, making the most of the time. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you should answer each person." So I think just moving on to the last part for us, which would be the communication with the Lord. For me, as I was getting ready to do this, I just was walking around the house, and the Lord really spoke to me in the sense of, I think, at least for me, I'll say for me, because I wasn't necessarily, raised in church. And so I think that people, you have this pressure almost of how you should pray, right? So for me, it was like there's this prayer dialogue, and you have to perfect this prayer dialogue in order for the Lord to really hear you. So for me, it wasn't until I came to the realization that a relationship with the Lord can actually be a communicative relationship. That's when I began to understand what it meant to be like intimate with God. It was whenever I realized it could be a two-way street, and I could express to him how I was feeling and sit and be still and listen and hear him speak back to me. And most of the times he was validating things to me. So for me, I think the very first time that I really came to that realization that I really communicated with the Lord was whenever I lost my grandma. And I can just remember laying there literally in the pitch black. And I just remember numerous times saying to God, like, I have nothing to give to you right now. I literally have nothing. And it wasn't until I felt that I communicated that directly to him in the deepest part of my hurt that I was able to start to heal. He brought things to me to help me heal. Like I started therapy, and my whole life changed. And so for me in that moment, that was the first time that I was able to fully bear it all and literally say to him and not have that fear of thinking I was going to disappoint him or make him mad. So for me, that would be my example. So what was the time for you?
So I've actually had two. When I lost my dad, of course, I wasn't very old, and I was still wondering why. And I remember sitting at the funeral home and sitting there, and I was down, of course, I was sad, and I asked why. And it was almost like I felt somebody put their arm around me, and they whispered in my ear, and it said, he's here. He's here watching you. He'll be there for you. Don't worry. And of course, I'm still sad for the most part, but I know he's there. So that was a comforting time with me. And then, what was it, about 4 years ago? I was diagnosed with a rare type of cancer. I had it removed. We had 2 children, one on the way, and I sat down. Of course, I was away from Rayleigh and the kids, and was kind of mad and upset about what was all going on. I'd already had 2 kids, wished my dad was here, and wanted to know why it was happening. And then again, all of a sudden, I felt somebody put their arm around me, and the words I heard were, "Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. It'll go away." And just an instant calm went over me. I never worried about it. You can ask Rayleigh. I don't, other than a little bit of pain, I don't know that I felt it any different, went a different way. I mean, my surgery was fine, went through it, recovered well. I had to go do treatments, and the doctors were amazed at some of the stuff that I didn't go through that most people do. So
yeah, but I think that's just a testament to not only you just going straight to the source and saying, just going straight to the Lord and just asking a very hard question. And I think a lot of times people are afraid to do that because you are afraid you're going to disappoint God or you're going to upset him. But the thing about the Lord is nothing is a surprise to him. And so I feel like he knew for me, I so desperately wanted an answer why my grandma left, but I was too scared to ask. But in the same sense, it was like I didn't even have the strength to ask the Lord why. And so for me literally just verbally saying out loud to him, I have nothing left to give, was enough of a validation or a confirmation to him that I did still trust in him in the process. So I think that could be something to take away from it, is that in your direct communication with the Lord, that may be what he is exactly waiting on in that moment of your life, in that season of your life. And especially with everything that we have going on right now, it's like, what else do you have? What else do you have other than to fully put your trust in the Lord, to communicate to him like, man, this is just really hard. We don't know what to do with our kids about school. We don't know what's going to happen with our jobs or whatever it may be. So I think to finish this out, a question that I think the question we want to propose to you guys is, when was the first time, or what is an example of a time that you directly communicated to the Lord? And I don't mean just in your normal everyday prayer, but whenever you just felt that you were so blunt or so raw that you almost were fearful in doing it, but you still did it anyways. So I think that's the question we want to leave you with. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. We enjoyed doing it, and we'll see you guys around. Thanks.
Stay safe.